Travis with Pro Performance. We're heading into Southern California. We're going to visit our friends at VIAIR, check up on the wheels at Hot Rods by Boyd, and a final stop at Currie to check up how a 9-inch rear end is made.
What's up, Travis? What up?
Hey guys, this is Tim at VIAIR. VIAIR Corp's been around since 1998, and we are the heart of your air suspension system. We provide air compressors and other accessories to the on and off-road market and the air suspension community. This year, for our 20th anniversary, we're excited to showcase our Gen 2 compressors. One thing we strive to do is to provide quality products that meet requirements and the expectations behind the VIAIR name.
We're super excited to work with Travis from Pro Performance on his Suburban build. Can't wait to see how it turns out.
All right, so we just left VIAIR. We're going to head over to Hot Rods by Boyd and see our friend Chris Coddington. Check up on the wheels.
Hey, what's going on, dude? Hey. How you doing?
Good.
Let's go check my wheels out.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, we're here with Chris from Hot Rods by Boyd. We're going to take a behind-the-scenes look at the progress on the wheels for the '64 Suburban.
Hi, I'm Chris Coddington with Hot Rods by Boyd. We've been building custom billet wheels for over 30 years. So Travis chose 20-inch BOFs to go on his Suburban, and he opted for the brushed and polished finish. So what we do is we take the center, we get it fully polished, and then we lay down a nice brush finish over the top of it, and we use this lathe to get a nice uniform finish on top of the polish. So as you can see here, now we have the tops of the spokes. We got a preliminary finish on this thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to get it over to the assembly table, assemble it, weld it, and it's going to come back for final detail, and we're going to go back and rebrush it. All right, so this is our assembly table here. What we're going to do is we're going to heat up the rim shell with a torch. It's going to expand the rim shell, and with these plates here, we have your backspace set. So we got 20 by 8.5 with 5 1/4 backspace. All right, so this is set at 5 1/4, and then what we're going to do is we're going to heat up the rim shell. It's going to expand. We're going to put the rim shell here, take the center, drop it very carefully down in there, and then we're going to let it cool down. And then we're going to get a nice little interference fit on it, and then we're going to check the run out and let it cool down again, and we're going to go weld it. All right. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to very carefully drop the center down into the rim shell. We can go 18-inch wide, and I mean we can go as high as the ceiling as far as welding it. This equipment is a mixture of MK products. We got a Miller cooler, but it's been working for us for 20-something years.
Can't wait to get those on the Suburban. It'll look good. We just left Hot Rods by Boyd. We're going to head over to Currie Enterprises and check out how rear ends are made. Well, thanks for coming to Currie Enterprises. I really appreciate you coming and visiting us. Want to show you just a little bit about the process and how we do things.
All right.
Sound good?
Yeah.
So we start life with a housing center that we have stamped and made for us. This is our tooling that we make. It's basically just the raw housing center. Basically, we're going to start life with the housing center, and then every order is treated almost like a custom order. So for something like a C10, like what we're building for you at 62 1/8 wheel mount to wheel mount, our departments are basically going to get 3 different cards: a housing card, an axle card, and a third member card. So we're just going to walk through real quick and take a look at each department. We have bunch of different tubes that we use based on the actual application. So if we're going to build a muscle car rear end, we use typically a 3-inch diameter tube, which is pretty much your standard for your muscle cars and C10 truck brackets. But we go all the way up to like a 4-inch tube now for like trophy truck guys, guys that are doing big time off-road racing. They need a bigger diameter tube and everything in between. So sometimes we'll get into a thicker wall thickness or something that needs to be a little bit more rigid. Or if it's going to be an autocross car, then we get all the way down to a real thin 118 thousandths wall chrome ollie tube. So we make it just super light. Yeah, exactly right. So what we did for yours is because it's a C10 or more Suburban, it's going to have some weight in the back, probably a couple of kids, I imagine, nowadays. So we did our standard 3-inch tube.
Okay.
Yep. Nice. And then the order kind of moves on over here, and then based on the measurements, they start cutting tube. What we're doing here is we're basically pre-assembling the housing, and we're welding on housing ends, checking all of the measurements to make sure they are the correct pinion offset for the vehicle, and then we're going to make sure that the whole housing is straight. What's nice about doing it this way is it allows us to offset the housing ends if we need to make sure that the axle's sitting perfectly straight in the carrier. Gotcha. Then he'll tack weld everything together here with the brackets, and then we'll move it on to final assembly and welding for the actual production welders. Everything's cut, everything's tacked in place, the housing ends are in place. Our production welders are going to get a hold of it, and they're going to weld everything that needs to get welded, inside and outside. So they're going to weld the brackets on, weld the housings, weld the housing ends in place, and he's going to finish up, looks like a control arm, some housing ends right now, so we get an idea of how fast and how good these guys are. Moves quick. Well, we'd like to try to get at least 3 through in about an hour. So, if he can get completed and do one every 20 minutes. The axle department's been busy. They're already starting to build the axle shaft. So they've already got measurements based on what that housing is going to be. So what we're doing here is we make our own axle shafts. It's a 1541 forged alloy. It's heat and treated. And so they come as a core, 40 inches. And then we can cut them down, put the spline count in them, put the bolt pattern in it, whatever long stud. If you need a 5/8 drag race stud or just a standard 1/2-inch stud, we cut it all to fit. And then we turn down the flange to fit whatever your brake package is. So if it's a Pro Performance kit, we've got the measurements on that. We'll make sure that this flange fits your brake kit.
Pretty much do whatever you want.
Absolutely. Yeah, just give us the specs and then we'll work it all the way back from there. Absolutely. Yep. Moving from the axle department, we're going to get into actual assembly. So your axles are going to come to assembly. Your housing is already coming down to assembly on the rack here. We do a bunch of industrial stuff, like we just passed by something we're doing for Disneyland. It's for one of their floats. We do mining carts and street sweepers, a bunch of cool things on the industrial side, but we do a lot of hot rods, a lot of Jeep stuff. So all these housings are done and ready for assembly. So our assembly guys are going to grab their specialty, whether it be a Rock Jock 60 or a 12 bolt or a 9-inch, and then they're going to come and pull the axles that are already cut to length and spline to length, and they're going to put them on the bench and then start final assembly. So the guys that have done final assembly here, most of them have been here for 15 to 25, 30 years. So you pick up a Hot Rod magazine from like 1985, Mr. Gonzalo's in it. And if you pick up the Hot Rod magazine from 3 weeks ago, Mr. Gonzalo's in it. So let's go ahead and talk to Gonzalo.
Let's go.
So what Gonzalo's working on right now is actually a Pro Touring rear end. It's got our floater on it. It's going to be, looks like for an A-body Chevelle. So all the brackets are jig welded for an A-body Chevelle. But what he's checking right now is to make sure that the axles are built to the right length so it'll fit our floater. And he's going to go through our final quality control check right here to make sure that the width is correct, that the bolt pattern is correct, that everything is built perfect, that everything is straight. He's going to final assembly it, and then Mr. Gonzalo is going to pass it on to shipping, and our guys in shipping are going to crate it up and kick it out to the customer. Yeah. Nice. So after Gonzalo's done with full assembly and then the axles are coming out of assembly, they're going to get basically lined up for shipping and receiving. So they're going to come to shipping. If they're going to ship complete, if they're complete with brakes and a third member, everything's installed, we ship them on a pallet. So these are all ready to ship complete. So they're going to go through the shipping process and get out the door and ship freight truck. So like something we would do for a full C10 with brakes and everything would go in a giant coffin encompassed by cardboard and wood and on the way to the customer. So, well, I want to say thank you. Thank you to Travis at Pro Performance for coming out and checking out Currie Enterprises. We really appreciate what you're doing with us in the C10 market and pushing us out in the hot rod market as well. I hope you learned something about what we do here at Currie Enterprises, and I hope that your audience learned something about what you're doing, what we're doing here at Currie Enterprises. If you guys need anything hot rod or C10 rear ends, please look this guy up, man. He'll look up with me and we'll make sure it gets done right. Thanks again, dude.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, we just got back into Arizona. We got about another 2.5 hours to go. About 7 o'clock. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for future episodes, and we'll keep you updated.